Next component after discussing the planogram is gap check. Gap check is very important because whatsoever is not available on the shelf is a gap. So a retail store should know how many products are actually not available, and that you can easily identify it through the gap check. So what the gap check is, how do the store do that, and how does it impact overall on the business? Let me discuss with you quickly one by one. So first of all, it's about the gap check. So gap check means scanning the barcodes of the missing or lost stock articles. So two type of articles. One articles which are actually not available, and the articles which are actually in the low stock articles. So how do you have to do? You have to do this gap checking through the HHDs, handheld terminal, or HHDs, handheld devices. Normally in the retail store, the store has these HHDs, and they are used normally for the gap checking. Barcodes are actually normally displayed on the shelf. And what are these barcodes? If you have observed, not immediately if you see that products have the price tags, and these price tags normally have the barcodes available on the rail cards or on the shelf edge tickets. These, from there you can easily identify that the product was available, how much stock the product is having, because this HHD has the stock record. Immediately whatsoever is available, the HHD has the stock availability status. So you can immediately scan it, and after scanning you will get to know either this article is low available in the stock or his article is not available in the stock. So both will tell you. So what is a gap? The gap is about the stock articles on stock on shelf equals to 0. So you consider a particular product as a gap when the status of the stock of an article equals to 0, which means there is no stock available. If there is no stock available, you consider it as a gap. And if the stock of the article on the shelf is available, but it is available from this, if you normally say it is available from the daily average sales, or that is normally DMS, daily mean sales. If the daily mean sales, the stock is less from this DMS, then this article will be considered as low stock articles. For example, what is DMS? DMS is if an article normally sells 10 units in a day, then for a day you should have at least 10 units in hand. And for example, if the delivery of that particular article is after 7 days, so at any point of time you have to have 70 units with you at least. So if an article which is of this status has less than 70 units or less than X units, ultimately this will be considered as low stock. So gap check is a gap is when the stock is 0, and the low stock is when it is less than the required limit, than the required defined parameter. So gap check actually allows what? Gap checks allows to record quickly and analyze gaps on the shelf. So first of all, you have to record quickly and analyze all the gaps on the shelf. Either it is a mistake, it is more sales because of the more sales, either it's because of the delay in supplies, either it is because of the delay in ordering. So you have to identify and analyze the reason of that particular gap so that you can avoid that gap in the future. Then prioritize goods receiving of current gaps. So you are receiving actually daily in the store, a lot of products in the store. So now you have to make the prioritization. The products which are actually in the gap, so you have to ensure that you prioritize their receiving so that quickly they can reach into the store and that gap can be filled. Third, you need to search for stock and filling the gaps. In some cases, the stock is available, the stock is visible in the system. The HHT is telling you that there is stock, but the stock is not available on the shelf. So quickly, the gap check help you to search the stock, where the stock is available on the shelf in the warehouse, so that you can display it on the shelf. Then prioritize articles to be replenished. So gap check help you. If you have the gap available, it will quickly give you an indication that which articles you have to replenish first. So prioritization of replenishment should be from the gap check. So if the articles are available, there is no article is available on the shelf, there is a gap. So immediately you have to first priorities to fill that, to replenish that particular gap. The second last thing the gap check allows you to do stock corrections. For example, if there are stocks available on the shelf, if there is a damaged stock available, if there is a theft of that particular stock, so all stock corrections can be easily identified from the gap check, which means all stock shortages can be easily identified, because that will really help you in correcting the actual stock, because system will tell you that there are 10 articles, but physically you see there are 2 articles which are not available. Maybe someone has stolen these articles, so you can correct that stock and you can easily correct your inventory, and that is only possible through gap check. So the next thing is about create gap rate and lost sale reports. In most of the cases, it has been observed that, of course, the store target is to reduce the gap check. The more the stock availability is, ultimately will bring more sales for the business. So ultimately, if there is a gap, it will result into lost sales. So store have to make 2 reports. How much lost due to these gap products? If the product should be available at that time, a product was available, of course you must have been generated an X particular of sales, and so it will help in increasing sales if you fill that particular gap, and if you ensure that gap check is there, properly followed, and the gap rate is reducing, ultimately you will get more business out of it. So gap check process development, how it works. There are 4 steps to it. Let me review quickly. So the first part is about check gaps. You have to scan the barcode on the shelf label of all gaps. So what you have to do is, first of all, is the scanning of the barcodes. And then after that, you have to create report, because that report will give you and the products which are actually appearing in the gap check. Then you have to find out the root cause. So how you have to find out the root cause? Automatically through the system, through the goods management system, can easily tell you about the root cause. It was because of the ordering, a delay in ordering. It was because of the delay in delivery. It was because of anything that can easily tell you from this gap check process. And the last thing is about the report. You have to send report which includes the root cause analysis, so that you can avoid this gap check in the future. So when do we do this gap check? Very important thing. There are 2 parts. First is before opening of the store, and second during the day. Because if the product is selling routine on the basis of regularly on the store, so the key thing is before opening, that 1 hour before the store opening, you have to ensure this gap check. And the second is during the day, after 8 hours, which means after the shift change, 8 hours after the opening of the store, you have to do this gap check. And if you do this gap check properly, of course, this will help you to identify, to make stock corrections, to prioritize the replenishment, to prioritize the goods receiving, to ensure that the performance can be improved, to ensure that the product availability can be ensured, and then ultimately the revenue of the business can be ensured. So twice in a day, you have to ensure this gap check. First, before the opening of the store, and second, during the day. Normally, after once there's a change in the shift, for example, normally after 8 hours, you have to do that, because ultimately at the same time you can address that, and if you are able to address this issue, you will get more sales, more business for your retail store.